Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Stitch Create Love podcast. I hope you're well. You're very welcome. It's lovely to have you with me. My name is Lindsay and I am 34 and I'm coming to you from Cheshire in the northwest of the UK, where I live with my husband and our 4-year-old daughter. Today is Tuesday the 7th of January 2020, so start of a new year, start of a new podcast. And my daughter's at nursery today, so I've got some time to try and film a podcast. I say try, it's something that I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've made lots of excuses about technology and, cameras and not having enough time, but it's something that I really want to do, so I thought I would give it a go. I've never done anything like this before. I've done a few Instagram stories from behind the camera, but this is all new to me, so I'm quite nervous. This may never see the light of day, and if it does, then I'm probably not going to be able to edit anything out, so anything could happen really. I think what I'm trying to say is, if I do upload it, if I'm brave enough to press publish, then bear with me if there are some kind of glitches and teething issues, but I hope that you find something that interests you and something that you enjoy, and hopefully I'll be able to carry on filming more episodes and you'll come back and join me again. I have made some notes which are just down here, so I'm going to keep checking those. I've actually got 2 sets of notes. I've got one with just bullet points here, and then I've got some more detailed notes about my projects and things down there, but my next point is where you can find me. I thought I would try and be at least a little bit professional. So I'm on Instagram as Stitch Create Love. I do post fairly regularly on there. Maybe I'll post a little bit more regularly as a result of doing a podcast, who knows. I'm also on Ravelry, Stitch Create Love as well. I'm not very good at keeping that up to date, but that is something that I would like to get better at this year, hopefully. I do have a Facebook page, but that is not really linked to the podcast. That is for my local business, which is also called Stitch Create Love. I teach sewing and other crafts to people locally through classes and mainly through one-to-one tuition, but the Facebook page just deals with that. It's not really to do with the podcast. And what I want my Instagram and my podcast and my Ravelry to be is really about my personal crafting and making and creative things in my life. So that's what you'll find here. There'll be some knitting, there'll be some sewing, and there'll be other stitch-based crafts, hence the name Stitch Create Love. I didn't want to restrict myself to any one craft in particular, but stitching is kind of the common thread that runs through all of the crafts that I do. So that's what you'll be having on my podcast. So my next point, why have I chosen to podcast? Hopefully this will come a little bit more natural as I go along and I'll stop talking about my next point all the time, but there's a few different reasons. I've been watching lots of other lovely podcasters for a while now, and it's been really nice and really helpful for me to know that there are lots of other people out there who love making and crafting and having a creative life as much as I do, because I have lots of lovely real life friends who are wonderful, and I don't know what I would do without any single one of them, but they don't share that crafting side of my life with me. And now my phone is giving me notifications, so I'm just going to ignore that. There we are, it's gone. And I can't edit that out, so, just forgive me, just bear with me. Where was I? Why I'm podcasting. Yes, so it's nice to know that there are others out there who enjoy what I enjoy, and I wanted to be a little bit more involved in that community, putting what I've got to share out there a little bit more and sharing it with others. I've also found it really helpful listening to other people podcasting and watching their vlogs, just learning about different projects, different patterns and designers, different yarns, different fabrics. It's helped me to just be more aware of what's out there, and it's helped me to discover other independent and small businesses that I've been able to support. So maybe I can do a little bit of that as well for people and kind of open up a wider world of crafting, who knows. And the other reason that I wanted to have a go is it is the start of a new year, And last year I decided to not make any New Year's resolutions, but at the suggestion of, I think it was Ellie from Little Drops of Wonderful, who I will mention again later. But she said that she was going to have a word for the year, and so I decided to do that. And my word for last year was positive, because at the back end of 2018 I had a few things going on personally that left me having quite a negative mindset. So I thought, well, positive can be my word for the year, and I think it really did help, because I was a lot more positive over last year, and I started up my business last year as well, which was a very positive thing to do, and I've taken lots of positive steps in my crafting and my making. So I decided to do the same thing again, but my word for this year is going to be organised. I think that I'm quite organised professionally. When I was at work, I was always pretty organised, and in terms of what I do with my business, I'm very organised. But in my personal life, I think I could be far better organised, far more organised, organised in a better, more efficient way. Because I'm sure that I'm not the only person that feels like we have so many things that we need to do, so many things that we want to do, and we feel like we don't have enough time to do them. So I thought, well, if I am better at the time, or using the time that I do have, if I have a kind of a plan for when I'm going to do certain things, then maybe I'll be able to free up a little bit more time for crafting. And also, if I'm a little bit more organised in my crafting, which is what I hope the podcast is going to do for me, because I will have that structure of finished objects and works in progress and plans, and I suppose a little bit of accountability there as well with the podcast. If I have that, then maybe I'll be a little bit more efficient in the crafting that I do, and I'll learn a bit more and I'll get more done. So yeah, hopefully this podcast is going to help me to be a little bit more organised. So what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I've got some finished objects to share with you. I've got some works in progress. I'm going to talk about some future plans, and I'm also going to have a little bit of a chatty bit at the end where I just talk about a couple of other things that I thought it would be nice to mention. There's probably going to be a lot of rambling as well, because I think when you have something that you're really interested in, it's really nice to talk about that and you want to share it. So there's probably going to be quite a lot of waffling. I'm waffling now. Let's get on with what I was going to do. Before I kind of get onto the projects though, I wasn't really sure how much detail to go into about my crafting journey to date up to now. I don't want to go into like loads of detail, because I think that if I do, then you're going to spend, hours listening to me going on. I've already talked for 8 minutes and we haven't started yet, really. So if you want to know any more about that, then you can leave me a comment, or you can send me a message on Instagram. But what I will say for now is that the way that I craft or make now, in the sense that it's very much a part of my everyday life. I craft most days, and if I don't, I kind of feel like I've got something missing in that day a little bit, and it very definitely helps me to deal with stresses in my life. It helps me to deal with anxiety, because I do suffer quite a lot with anxiety, and at various different points in my life I've had some quite bad kind of episodes of anxiety, particularly after having my daughter. I struggled a lot with postnatal anxiety, and actually stopped crafting for a while. It was that bad, but crafting is kind of what brought me back out of that, really. And so in terms of where I am now, the way that I craft, I think that started about 18 months ago. I was working at the time as a primary school teacher, and anybody that teaches or knows of teachers will know that teachers have a very stressful job, and that it's not just when you're in school teaching that you're working, you're also working at home. And I felt that I needed something in the evenings to calm me down and take my mind off whatever had been going on in the day, just something else for me where I could wind down, really. And I've always been more of a sewer than a knitter. but getting the sewing machine out and getting the ironing board out and the patterns and the fabric, and it's all quite bulky. Anybody I'm sure who sews will know that that's the case. So I picked up my knitting needles again, and whilst I tried knitting many times over the years, I'd never got very far with it. But for some reason this time it seemed to make sense to me. It seemed to click, whether it's because there are more tutorials available now on YouTube, and I'm a very visual learner, so it helps for me to be shown how to do something, or whether it's just because I was a bit older or at a different point in my life, I don't know, but it made a lot more sense to me and I stuck with it, and I've learned so much over the last 18 months. So I kind of, knitting and sewing are mainly what I do. I do quite a lot of dressmaking. In fact, I have made what I'm wearing today. I'm not going to try and stand up and show you because I'm sitting on a couple of cushions here to elevate me up enough so that I'm looking at you in the right way. But it's the Sylvia robe from Sew Over It, which it used to be called the kimono jacket. In fact, if I put that there, that's probably better. Everything's going to be the wrong way around. I don't know how to change it because I've got myself looking at myself, so I'm trying hard to look at the camera down here. But this is it used to be called the kimono jacket. It's now called the Sylvia robe from Sew Over It. So this is the short version. I've actually got the longer version on. So it's got nice, where are we? Sleeves here. Just made from a viscose. That I bought as a remnant from Abercan Fabrics in Mostyn. I thought I should try and wear something that I've made, and it's quite chilly today, and I make a lot of dresses and I've made a lot of things over the summer, so yeah, I do a lot of dressmaking, I do a lot of knitting, and as I say, other stitch based crafts as well. So if you want any more information on any of that, just let me know. We are going to get started with some finished objects. Today it's going to be quite knitting heavy. I don't know whether in future episodes I might put it into separate sections, you know, knitting and then sewing or anything else, but for today I'm going to mix it up. There's a lot of knitting and there's a little bit of sewing in there as well. So the first finished object, you should see the state of my table. Or in fact, before I start, I'm going to do another podcasty thing and I'm going to show you my mug, which has a lovely bunny rabbit on it. I got this from Home Sense, which is the kind of the home division of TK Maxx, I suppose. I'm just checking my time. 12 minutes, not too bad for rambling. And the tea that I've got in here it's a Tetley Super Fruits Boost, I think it's called. It's basically lots of lovely berries, and it's got vitamin B6 in it, which is supposed to help combat tiredness and fatigue, which we're all suffering at this time of the year, aren't we? Please tell me that you're suffering from that too. Right, let's move the tea out of the way and get on with the knitting. So the first finished object that I'm going to talk to you about, sock blockers. I'll just show you one for now and I'll get the other one out in a minute. It is, let's see if I can fill the screen properly. There we go. My Strictly socks. That's very silly, isn't it? Never mind. Yeah, it is my Strictly socks. That's not what the pattern's called. My Strictly socks I knitted as part of I've got them the wrong way around, the Strictly Sock Along, which is run by the lovely, let's go over there, Ali from the Little Drops of Wonderful podcast. I'm sure you know Ali. If you don't know Ali, she is a little drop of wonderful. Ali is the first podcaster that I ever started to watch, and I binge watched all of her back episodes pretty much from when I started watching her about a year ago. She is lovely, she's funny, she rambles a lot like me, and I think when she started podcasting, she was probably at a similar stage to where I am at the moment. So I identify a lot with what Ali has said in her podcasts, and she also, she's quite a big advocate, I'm just going to pop those down for a minute, of crafting for helping with stress and anxiety and mental health issues, and I'm a massive advocate for that. So if you're not familiar with Ali, do go and check her out, Little Drops of Wonderful. But she runs an annual sock along. I think she's done it for 3 years now. And basically the idea is that you knit a pair of socks, or more than one pair of socks if you wish, whilst you're watching Strictly Come Dancing, which is on the television between September and Christmas in the UK. I think it's called Dancing with the Stars in a couple of other countries, certainly in America. Anyway, and I really wanted to join in with that this year because these are not the first pair of socks that I have attempted to knit. I have attempted to knit a pair of socks before, but for some unknown reason I tried to knit them on one pair of socks, one sock at a time, on 2 pairs of circular needles, because I read in a circular knitting book that that was a good way to do it, and I'm sure there is a place for knitting like that in the round, but it was really complicated. I got really confused, and so I ripped them back. I'm probably talking far too quickly. Let's have a sip of tea and pause for you to digest that information. So I really wanted to join in with this because I thought it was something that was going to make me accountable, really. It was going to make sure that I finished them. So these are the finished socks, and whilst the idea is that you knit them whilst you're watching Strictly, cheating is encouraged, so most of these have not been knit while I've been watching Strictly at all. They have been knit while I've been watching the television, actually, because the pattern is the oh, there we are, that's quite a good fit, isn't it? The Cherry Vanilla Socks by Yarn Cafe Creations, who is Christy Houghton, or Houghton, I'm not sure how you say it. When I got the pattern, it was a free pattern on Ravelry. I'm not sure whether it is still free. I'm pretty sure it is. Maybe I'll check. But it's just a really nice, simple vanilla sock with a twist, literally. So you can see that here we've got the slight variation in the pattern going down there. And it's a really easy stitch pattern to do. It's really good for telly knitting. So I did knit a lot on these when I was watching television. I knit them on 2.25mm higher sharp short circular needle, so you've got a really short bit there. I found that easy because they were my first pair of socks. I thought that would be the easiest way to go. Just excuse me adjusting my cushion slightly. And it was simple. I did use DPNs when I needed to, which was also a nice and easy way to go. I knit them cuff down, so we've got ribbing at the top there, and then I made a note of the number of rows that I knitted on the leg. Heel flap and gusset, a little bit messy there, but for my first pair of socks I'm more than happy with that. And then all the way down, and the toe, you've got toe decreases there, which again could probably be a little bit neater, and then I grafted the toe using Kitchener stitch, which I did look at a tutorial online for that. There's lots out there. I can't remember exactly which one I used. I think I might have used one for one sock and one for another. And I didn't find that too difficult, actually, because I know a lot of people have said that, I don't know why I'm just looking at my sock in the screen. A lot of people have said that Kitchener stitching is quite difficult, and whether it's because I sew, I don't know whether that's why I found it quite simple. I think I'd have to go back and look at it a few times. I don't think it's something that I would just remember. But I found it okay. And I had 60 stitches when I knit these, and for one of the socks, that's great. You'll notice how I say for one of the socks, because if I hold them up again to show you, you can see that one of them, I put them in front of each other to show you, one of them goes higher up the blockers than the other. This one is bigger than that one. And I think the reason for that is to do with my tension. So when I started these, when I cast them on in September, I was knitting differently to how I knit now. And I'm looking around. I'm going to show you. Excuse me, 1 minute, whilst I get one of my works in progress to show you. So now I'm knocking the table. Very unprofessional, please bear with me. So when I started knitting those, let me just get these needles to where I need them to be. This is one of my works in progress that I will show you in a little while. Talk amongst yourselves. Dear me, right, and I've got a row counter on there, which isn't going to help either. Okay, so when I started knitting those, and I'm doing this because I think it's probably helpful for other people who perhaps are quite new to knitting. I'm going to be doing it backwards, which isn't going to help. I don't knit continental, but obviously this is the other way around because of how I'm filming. You should get the idea though. I would go into my stitch and then I would use my working yarn. I would take it between my finger and my thumb and I would wrap it round, and then I would use my finger to hold it in place whilst I made a new stitch and then pulled that one off there. What I then changed to doing whilst I was knitting the socks was going into my stitch, and then what I now do, which is I think probably how you're supposed to knit, is I wrap it round here and I tension my yarn over my index finger. So rather than actually grabbing hold of it and wrapping it round, I'm just wrapping it round using my finger, and then I'm carrying on. I hope you get the idea. But what I found, let me just pop that back in there. I will show you that shortly. What I found when I knit them the old way is that my tension was a lot tighter. Either that or I was just really stressed when I knit the first sock and not so much when I knit the second one. So I think were I to knit them again, I would either cast on fewer stitches or I would use a smaller needle. They fit fine, and I'm really happy with them, and I've tended to wear them in the house because I do suffer quite a lot with cold feet, so they keep my feet nice and warm, particularly of an evening, rather than putting the heating back on. This one is quite a bit neater than the other, where I've done the heel flap and gusset. I mean, that's dreadful, isn't it? This is lovely, and then I don't know what happened there. And the same on the other side. But I get this here, which on the other one is, you can see it a lot worse. See here. And that's not going to stop me wearing them. And if I really wanted to, I could put a stitch in there. If anybody's got any advice on that, because I'm assuming it's just because I've not picked up my stitches properly or evenly enough. And then when I've come to the top, I've got a stitch that I should have picked up here, which has left a gap. But if anybody has any other ideas, then please let me know. The yarn that I used is this one here, which I've got stuck because I've still got quite a bit left. So this is the yarn that I used. I keep going to that side, it's because I'm left-handed. This is the yarn that I used, which, do I block out my face and then maybe it focuses on the yarn? Lovely greens and yellows, and it is called Buttercup. It is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon. You won't be able to read that because it's the wrong way around. And it was from Little French Meadow. Sadly, they are no longer dyeing. I think just before Christmas they decided to shut up shop, which is a shame because I've had quite a bit of yarn from them and it's lovely. But that was obviously the right decision for them. Let me just check. Did I want to tell you anything else about that? No. Apart from the fact that I now definitely have the sock bug, and because I have had the issue with one of them being bigger than the other, I've decided that I'm going to knit my neck socks 2 at a time, and I'll show you those when I'm talking about my whips. I've done my first finished object and I'm at 23 minutes. Oh, I'm rambling. Right, next finished object is this. This is beautiful. This is just lovely. Let me show you this. You want to see this, you don't want to see my face. Now, you're getting a pretty good representation of the colour there, of the yarn. So if I just hold that back, this is the Snuggle Down Cowl by lovely Jooles, who is so sweet violet. Again, I'm going to put this on actually. There we go. Ooh. There we are. Lovely and warm. Again, you probably already know Jooles. You don't need me to tell you about her. I came quite late to Jooles actually. It was one of the things that YouTube recommended to me. So I don't know if you're aware, but if you subscribe to particular channels or if you give certain videos a thumbs up, if if you'd like to give this video a thumbs up or subscribe, please do. I promise I'll get more professional as it goes on. But yeah, if you like certain videos or you subscribe to certain channels, then YouTube will often suggest to you other videos that you might like to watch. And I've found a lot of people that I would never have known about through that, by doing that. So when you do see things that you like, do like them, because it helps. Is it something to do with algorithms? Yeah, it helps YouTube to know what you would like to watch. So Jooles was suggested to me like that, and then in July she did some July vlogs, and I watched those, and that was lovely. She did a home holiday vlog in October, I think it was, and then in November time, on one of her podcasts, she published the Snuggle Down Cowl pattern, and I'll show you the pattern there. There we go, Snuggle Down Cowl. Snuggle Down Cowl, backwards again, sorry. Yeah, so she published that pattern, and I looked at it and I thought, oh yeah, that looks really nice. And then Jooles was doing Vlogmas, and I watched that and I thought, yeah, I'm gonna purchase that and I'm gonna give it a go. If you haven't seen Jooles, she really is lovely. What I find with Jooles is, if I'm feeling really stressed or really anxious and I've got my knitting out because I want to sit down and I want to have a little bit of me time and I want to just kind of breathe and calm down, then I put Jooles on, because she is so sweet and she's got very sort of soft gentleness to her voice and just the way that she is, and she's so lovely. So if you don't know Jooles, go and check her out. She's got a shop as well. She makes beautiful things. In fact, I don't have them here, but I will perhaps see if I can show you some of the time. I bought some lovely hair clips for my daughter from Jooles' shop for Christmas, and they're beautiful. So go and check Jooles out if you haven't already. But this is the pattern. As I said, lovely cowl. And you will notice, if I just take this off for a minute, that on the pattern, it's this shape, sort of, without the, you know, imagine these edges at the top. Mine is this shape. Now, for some completely unknown reason to me, let's pop that back on, it's just lovely and warm, which I'm going to call Christmas brain, because we can all blame Christmas on many things, can't we? I decided that instead of knitting the cowl with one strand of fingering weight yarn and one strand of floof, which is from Lay Family Yarns, and I'm not sure of the exact composition of it, but it's got an alpaca content. It's an alternative to mohair, basically, if you find mohair to be quite scratchy or itchy. So instead of knitting it with one strand of fingering weight yarn and one strand of floof, which is very, very clear in the description on Ravelry, in the pattern itself, I mean, let me read you what the pattern actually says. Cast on X number of stitches using your favourite cast on method with your first colour held together with the floof. It does not say with your first colour held in any other way. But I decided that I was going to hold my first colour double and then add it wasn't floof that I used, it was this. Let's show you that. It's just from Hobbycraft. It's a mohair acrylic blend. It might not even have mohair in it, actually. I did have, if I can find the label, I will. But yeah, I decided that I was going to do that. So I spent a long time balling up my skein of yarn that I had to make it with, which is beautifully soft, into two separate 50-gram balls, and then I ran out of yarn after 5 pattern repeats. You're supposed to do, I think it's 7 repeats, because you get 7 colours basically, and I've got mine's wider and I've got fewer, but you know, I don't mind, because what it's done is, if I show you in a bit more detail there, it's just made a really lovely kind of squishy cozy, snuggly yarn. It is lovely, and I do love it, and I'm going to knit another one. I'm going to talk about that in my future plans. So I'm really sorry, Jooles, that my brain decided not to follow your instructions properly, but I don't know, maybe this will help other people to think, well, actually, if I have a double knit yarn that I really want to knit it in with the floof or with the mohair, whatever you're going to put with it, it still works. So maybe that will help other people to have a go at the pattern. Who knows? I'm sorry, Jooles, but it is a gorgeous pattern. The yarn that I used, I don't think you can get this anymore. It's Alice yarn. And when I went onto that website shortly after I received this yarn, you didn't seem to be able to get it anymore. I got this in a D-stash that Helen, who is Flora Honeypot on Instagram, was doing. And it is, it's pink lemonade, and it says on the label that it's 4-ply. Again, this is backwards, but I'm telling you what it says. And it's 50% superwash merino and 50% silk. And I saw it on Instagram when Helen was de-stashing, and it looked a really, really lovely shade of pink, but I was not prepared for how soft it was going to be when it arrived. It is so soft. And I was waiting for the right pattern to use it for, so it had to be for this, really, because it's beautifully soft. I decided to put it with the grey wool yarn. Let me just see, have I got the bat for that in here? No, I haven't, but it's from Hobbycraft, and I think it was £3 for that, for a 50 gram ball, and they did a few different colours. I decided to put the grey with it because the original yarn, which I don't actually have any left of, so I can't show you, but it was quite pink, and I just thought the grey sort of toned it down and made it more silvery. So that's my Snuggle Down Cowl. I would highly recommend the pattern. If you're new to knitting in the round, it's just a nice, simple one to get you started on. So yeah, Snuggle Down Cowl by lovely Jooles. Let me check my notes and see if there was anything else I was going to say about that one. No. So I think I've now got bits of my fluffy yarn in my tea. But hey ho, we can deal with that. So the other finished object that I want to show you is not something that I finished recently. I finished a lot of other things recently, which I did. I knitted for Christmas gifts, and I did some sewing for Christmas gifts as well. But obviously they've now been given away, so I can't show you those. So I thought I would show you something else, which I want to show you because it marks, for me, it marks an important point in my kind of knitting journey. Oh gosh, we're up to half an hour already, I'm sorry. You can always fast forward. So this is my, let's see if I can get it all in, just about. You can see I've got a bit draped over the end there. This is my Spindrift shawl. And this is really special to me because I knitted this for my wedding in October. So in October last year, on the 8th of October, my husband, Stephen, and I got married. We've been together for 10 years. We have a 4-year-old daughter, but we've lived together for most of that 10 years. But we got married in October, and we got married in Cyprus. And because we were getting married abroad, I had a strapless dress, and I wanted something that I could just put over my shoulders in the evening if it got a little bit chilly. And so I decided to knit this to go with it. Now, I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see. I think you can get it coming through. It's like a sort of a beautiful creamy base, and then you've also got these lovely sort of greens and purples. It's almost like an oil on water green and purple coming through there. Very, very sort of delicate colours. And those were the colours of my bridesmaids' dresses. And this was a bit of a happy accident, really. This was the first full skeins of indie dyed yarn that I bought. That's the yarn there. You can't get the colour at all when it's spooled up or when it was skeined up. you just get it here. It's beautiful, beautiful yarn. It really is, and it's got such a lovely drape to it. And I got it from lovely Becky at Back to Blighty. And this was, it was a 2-part set. There were 2 skeins in the set. They were both 70% superwash merino, 30% silk, 400 meters to 100 grams. And the label here says apple blossom green, but the colour that I used for the shawl was apple blossom white. So she did an apple blossom duo, and you got the cream or the white skein and you got the green skein. And I bought the set for the green skein to make something else out of, which I'll talk about later. But when I saw the white and I saw these colours in it, I just had to use it to make this shawl. So it's the Spindrift shawl, which is a pattern by Helen, who is Curious Handmade. And anybody that has used their patterns before will know about how they're written out. This is a free pattern, by the way, the Spindrift shawl, if you want to have a go at that. And I love the way that her patterns are written, because you have a proper, like a spreadsheet or a database, and it has row 1 and it tells you what to do, and then it has row, I'm going the wrong way again, it has row 1 and tells you what to do, and then it in the next column, and then in the next column it will tell you how many stitches you should have, and then periodically it tells you what percentage of the way through that knit that you are. So it kind of, it motivates you and it keeps you going, basically. So yeah, that was for my wedding, just to cover my shoulders in the evening. And I know I've got this on, but now I wear it as a scarf, so I pop it round and I just have the ends like that. So it's lovely. It's really, really beautiful. I would recommend the pattern. I would recommend many of Helen's patterns. I used her Tchaikovsky hat pattern to knit a hat for my friend for Christmas, and that was written in the same way. It's lovely. So yeah, that is my Spindrift shawl, and as I said, it was Back to Blighty yarn from Becky, who also has a podcast. If you've not watched Becky's podcast, do go and have a look at her. She is a lot more efficient than I am. She gets through her podcasts a lot more quickly. So yeah, if you're finding this a bit rambly, go and have a look at Becky. She's got quite a few back episodes there for you to have a look at. So I did make a couple of mistakes on that with the purling at the beginning. I've written on my notes. But as I've already talked for long enough, let's not talk about my mistake. Okay, so works in progress. How many am I showing you? I'm only going to show you 2, actually, because I've shown you 3 finished objects and I've gone on for quite a long time there. So my first work in progress is in my Bumblebee bag. I make my own project bags. So this is just one that I've made. I've lined it with some spotty yarn, and on the outside is my pin telling me that I am a little drop of wonderful. Thank you, Ellie, for telling me that. Yes, it's a pin that I bought myself, but I believe that somebody out there is telling me that I'm a little drop of wonderful. There's plenty of those pins, I think, in Ali's shop if you would like one. So in this bag is my latest pair of socks. So I'm in a tangle, and here we go. So I have cast these on. Where are we? 2 at a time. I'll show you there. So I went onto YouTube and I looked at a tutorial for casting on 2 at a time socks. And it's going quite well. So this is the cuff, so it will obviously eventually be that way up. And these are the Hermione's Everyday Socks by, is it Erica Luda? It's a free pattern on Ravelry. I don't have the pattern here because I'm using a digital program and I haven't printed it out to show you. But if you search for Hermione's Everyday Socks on Ravelry, you will be able to find them, and it's a free pattern. So the pattern calls for you to cast on 64 stitches, and so what I have done is, rather than using 2.25mm needles, which is what I did last time, I've gone down to 2mm needles because I've got more stitches, and I'm hoping that that will mean that they will fit nicely. We will see. I did have a little bit of a problem when I was, I don't know if you can see there, it's not really very neat. I'm going to have a little play around with my cast on tail and see if I can do something about that. I had a bit of trouble there. I think I might have twisted my stitches slightly when I was doing the first couple of rounds on that one. So that is, the pattern is the Hermione's Everyday Socks, and I'm using Magic Loop 2 at a time, and this is just a very cheap, I don't even know what it's made of. When I first got back into knitting, I ordered of circular needle, sorry, my phone's just flashed something up again. I just bought a very cheap set of circular needles in like all sizes from 2mm through to 8 or something, and so that's one of those. So I'm quite pleased with how they're turning out. I can see they're not quite right at the top there either. Never mind, it doesn't matter. So I've got my ribbing at the top there. The yarn that I am using for the cuff is this lovely green. It's got sort of various different shades of green in it, and I don't know what it is. I know that it's sock yarn. It's one that I got in my Advent swap that I did. I took part in the Lay Family Yarn Advent swap, and I was paired up with the lovely Dawn, who is Yarns Knits, Yarns with a Z, Knits with a Z, on Instagram, and that was one of the yarns that I got in that swap, and that's what I'm using for the cuff. And then for the main part of the sock, I'm going to be using this, which is a West Yorkshire Spinners yarn signature. So it's 75% wool, 25% nylon, 400 meters to 100 grams, and the shade, I'm not sure. It's like, it's not, is it shade 06? You've got 06, 802, 0671. That's the band anyway. And I'm using this because I had some vouchers for Christmas. It's my 2 separate balls. For Abercan, which is my local place where I can get fabric and yarn. And so I spent some of my vouchers from my lovely mother-in-law on that yarn. So I'm going to use that for the main part of the sock. I might use this for the toe if there's enough left. But then for the heel, I think I'm going to use something else. Let me just delve into my bag of minis. Yeah, I think for the heel I might use this, because I don't think I'm going to have enough of the green to do the heel, the toe and the cuffs on both socks. So I think that one has got a label on it. Yeah, it has. Again, very unprofessional. Truly Hooked Spring Flowers, 70% superwash merino, 25% nylon. There's no point in me showing you that, it's backwards, but that's what I think I'm going to use to do the heels on the socks. So that is my Hermione's Everyday Socks, and I don't think there's anything else I need to tell you about those. So that's that one. And the other work in progress that I have is what I was fiddling about with when I was telling you about my tension. And let me just find the picture on the pattern. Back. It is the Ranunculus sweater, which is a paid for pattern, and it is Knit Cafe Midori. Loads of people have knit this, and the reason I decided to have a go at this is because it's a one skein project. And so here's the yarn that I'm using. It's the Apple Blossom Green from the Apple Blossom set. Back to Blighty again, lovely Becky. And I haven't got really far on it, but let's see if I can show you. It's hard to see because I don't think I'm using the right kind of size of needle really. As in, I'm using the right size of needle, but perhaps not the right cable length. Here we are, I think it's supposed to be that way around. So I haven't got very far into it. I've done the neckline and then I went wrong somewhere at the top. So it's difficult to see how far I've got. This looks quite nice down here. Yeah, I got in a bit of a muddle at the top really. And I cast this on just before Christmas, so I'm not 100% sure why. But I wanted to do that for a while because I've never knitted a garment, and I think if you're going to spend so much time, the amount of time that you spend knitting a garment, then you want it to be something that's knitted out of beautiful yarn, and this is a one skein project. So Becky herself from Back to Blighty has knitted quite a few. I think she might have done 3 ranunculus sweaters, so if you go and have a look at her podcast, they're beautiful. And there we go, you can get a better idea of the yarn there. I'm fiddling about, I should have just hung it like this, shouldn't I? But I finally cast it on when I was watching Sherrie, who is Ollie and Bella. She did Vlogmas. Sherrie's another lovely calming podcaster / vlogger, and she's got 3 children and she still manages to fit in loads of crafting. She's lovely. Go if you don't already know Sherrie and you don't already watch Sherrie, go and have a look at her as well. So yeah, this is my ranunculus, and as I say, I've just gone into a really bad ramble there, I'm sorry. I eventually cast it on after watching her because she'd cast it on and it looked lovely, and I put a comment on her video and I said, oh, I really want to cast this on, but I'm worried that it's a bit too difficult for me, and she said, well no, it's not, it's difficult enough to keep you interested, but it's nothing too taxing. So thank you very much, Sherrie, for inspiring me to have a go at my ranunculus. I have a feeling that that's destined to become quite a long-term whip, but we'll see. Maybe I'll do a bit of work on that at some point later on today, although I've got umpteen other things to be doing. That's in this bag, which I've also made. And I played about with the sewing machine on this one and used some of the embroidery stitches. So that's that one. Box bottom. So that is my works in progress. So plans, we're at 47 minutes, and I think my phone did something odd in the middle where it stopped recording and then started recording again, so there might be a gap in the middle, who knows. But my plans, so I'm going to do a make 9 for this year. And I think I'm going to do a combined make 9 for knitting and sewing, but I haven't finalised that yet. So I'm going to finalise that, and I'm going to do a separate video on that, or maybe just discuss it in my next podcast, I'll see. But I did want to talk about some of the plans that I have got. So I would really love to knit another Snuggle Down Cowl. So Snuggle Down Cowl, Jooles. Lovely pattern. If you go and look online, there are some lovely coloured photographs of that. And what I would like to use, excuse the rustling, we're going to have that now, is some pastel shades of yarn. So let me just get these out. Now I bought these on eBay. I think those were the ones that came together. Yes, they were. Okay, so these all came together. I bought them on eBay. So I have this one, which is lovely pinks. These are 20 gram minis, by the way, so I will only need to use 3.5 of them to do the Snuggle Down Cowl, because you need about 70 grams altogether. This is pinks, yellows and oranges. This one is blues and greens and pinks. In fact, that reminds me a little bit, because I'm not sure that these colourways are kind of repeatable, but looking at that, it reminds me ever so slightly of a new colourway that Mr. B Yarn is supposed to be releasing. I think it's tomorrow, as part of a shop update. They've dyed up some lovely Narnia inspired colours. So there's a colourway of theirs called Jardis, who is the White Witch. and it's got some of those colours in it. Then there's this one, which is blues and greens and greys, and then this one, which is greens and yellows. So I got those on eBay, and the lady that I got them from is Moss Cottage Yarn, and she does have an Etsy shop and a Facebook page. She doesn't seem to, or didn't seem to be at the time that I bought the yarns, doing much dyeing, but they're beautiful, beautiful colours. And they are 100% superwash merino. So I won't be using them for socks because they don't have a nylon content, but they're really, really soft. So I thought I would do another snuggle down, and I will choose which ones of those I want to use. Probably not that one, I'm thinking. Yeah, those might go better together. Just those. Maybe I'll do a little bit of edging in the pink or something. And I'm going to hold it with this. Now, the pattern suggests using the floof, which is from Lovely Kelly at Lay Family Yarns. But because I've already gone wrong once, I didn't want to invest in the floof to go wrong again. So I'm hoping at some point that, you know, my pennies will stretch to some of the floof to have a go. But I found this when I was spending my vouchers on the West Yorkshire Spinners yarn that I'm using for the socks. I found this, so it's Rosetti Alaska. It's 50 grams, and it is, it has got an acrylic content, 44% acrylic, but it's 26% nylon, 15% superwash fine merino wool, and 15% alpaca. It's really soft. It doesn't feel like it's going to be in the least bit scratchy. So I'm planning to hold that with some of these and do another snuggle down. So hopefully that's something that I will have cast on by you next see me, rather than rustling. I'm just going to chuck those there. So that's plan number one. Plan number two is to knit myself some mitts. Now I did knit some mitts. Have to be careful how I say that. As a Christmas present for my sister-in-law, and this is the pattern that I used. It is the Country Garden Fingerless Mittens pattern by Ellie Jones, who is Craft House Magic. I love Ellie. Ellie is hilarious. If you don't know Ellie, Ellie does lots of different crafts. She does knitting, she does crochet, she does sewing, she does bobbin lace. She also dyes beautiful yarn. I've not had any of her yarn yet, but it's definitely on my to purchase list because the colours she does are absolutely gorgeous, and they're all named after 80s and 90s pop songs, many of which are power ballads. I love a power ballad. Yeah, so she's really lovely, and her mannequin, her dressmaker's dummy, is called Barbara. And she's got her very own personality. So if you haven't come across Ellie, go and check her out. But the idea behind these is, and I'm sorry this is not the best picture, but you have your cuff, and then you have a pattern here which I'm not sure you can see. Yeah, you can. It's like the diagonal kind of cross hatch that you get on a trellis. So that's designed to be a garden trellis. And then this part here is designed to be butterflies, which I think is lovely. I'm not a brilliant gardener, but I have a very, very big garden that I cannot manage, and I just thought that it would be nice to have something that kind of relates to gardening and flowers and things. So that's the pattern. The yarn that I knit the Christmas ones in was this one here, and the yarn that I am proposing to knit mine in is this one here, which is orangey colours. So it's the same type of yarn. I don't think I have the bands for those, but I do have the bands for this one. The reason I have so many of these is they were on offer. They were selling them off in other cans. So it's Ceodar Dapple. My phone's just, there we are. Yeah, Dapple, and it is 100 grams, it's double knitting, and it's 75% acrylic and 25% wool. So that's the purple one, which I have plans to do a hat in possibly, but I thought I'd do the mitts in this one. I thought it would just be nice, and it's a slightly brighter colour that I can have on my wrists. So that's another plan that I have. Let me just pop that over there. Right, now we come on to some sewing. So it's all been knitting, but these are some sewing plans. So my first sewing plan, I'm just going to get a book from here. I haven't suddenly decided to twist away from you. I want to make lunar lapin. Lunar lapin is how I'm going to say it, because lapin is French for bunny rabbit, but if you wish to say lunar lapin, that is fine too. In fact, I could be wrong, it might not be French at all. I bought this in the works for, I think it was £5, and it's got all the instructions that you need to make Luna. There's Luna, isn't she lovely? And it's also got the instructions to make her clothes as well, and there's an armchair for her. I've seen a few people making Luna online. Ali's made her from Little Drops of Wonderful, Ellie's made her from Craft House Magic. I'm sure there are others, but I really want to make that for my daughter. And I thought, if I think about starting it now, the light's gone if I do that, isn't it? If I think about starting it now, I might actually get it finished for Easter, which is 4 months away, but I'm having, yeah, I tend to be somebody that has a lot of whips on the go. And the only reason that I haven't today is because in December I was really brutal and I went through all of my whips and I ripped most of them back. So I've only got one other whip that I haven't shown you today because I think I might be ripping it back anyway. So yeah, I'm going to have a go at making Luna. I've got loads of scrap fabric that I can use. I might order the grey wool felt from the website, which I think is it Sew and Sew? Or so, anyway, wherever it's from, it does tell you in the book somewhere. Materials, let's have a look what it says. It says see suppliers for details. Suppliers. Let's have a look at the suppliers. Cool Crafting. It's not Sew and Sew at all. It's Cool Crafting, and they do actually sell the wool felt. I think it's something like a £5 to buy it. So I might get that just so I've got the right fabric to do the bulk of her with. But I've got Liberty scraps that I can use for her ears and for her paws, and I've got loads of stuff I can use for her clothes. So that is very definitely on my to sew list. And also, excuse me, on my to sew list is the Sew Over It 1940s tea dress, which was a Christmas present from my sister-in-law, the pattern that is. If you look at the line drawings on the back, you can see that it's got some gathers here, and it's got a bit of an empire line, which I love because I'm a pear shape. And then we've got some princess seams, I think it is, down the back. And it uses... so for my size, it's probably going to be 2.3 meters of 140 centimeter wide fabric, and I have this fabric here, which is a viscose twill. Now that camera is making that look a lot more red. It is red, but I would say it's more of a maroony red than a bright red. Let's see if I can do something to make that. If I go a bit further in, no, that's making it worse. Go further away. Anyway, it's a bit more maroony. I got this in a Sew Hayley Jane subscription box that I got ages and ages ago. Must be about 18 months ago. And as I say, it's a viscose twill, and I just think that it will be nice for that dress. It's quite drapey. I've got 2.5 meters of it, so I'll have enough to do the dress. So that is on my to sew list. I'm trying to go through quickly here, but just a word about Sew Over It patterns. I love Sew Over It patterns. I've got lots of them up on this shelf here. And when I teach my students in my classes and as part of my one-to-one tuition, these are the patterns that I always use. The instructions are really good, and for me personally, these patterns fit me really well. I think I must just be the right kind of shape or size. I am a different size on the top to what I am on the bottom. I'm 2 sizes different on the top, sometimes 3, than what I am on the bottom. And they're kind of vintage modern inspired patterns. Sorry, vintage inspired modern patterns. And they're really lovely. There's so many of them. They do, so this is one of their printed patterns, but they do loads of PDF patterns as well. And they release, or they're going to be releasing this year, a new PDF pattern for every month. And they have a PDF club where if you're a member of the club, you get kind of like advance notice of that pattern coming out. You get a notice a week early and you get a 10% discount. Last year, I think it was something like, is it about £6.50 to join the club for the year? And when you join, you get a free pattern of your choice. So you're effectively getting a pattern for £6.50, and then you're getting all those other benefits as well. I think sign-ups are supposed to open for that tomorrow. So if you're interested in dressmaking and you like that kind of vintage, modern inspired idea, then sew over it. It's definitely recommended. As I say, that was a Christmas present from my sister-in-law. I buy all of the patterns myself. They haven't gifted me anything. Neither has anybody else that I've mentioned actually during this podcast. So any recommendations that I'm giving you are genuine recommendations from things that I have purchased with my own funds. So one more thing in future plans, I have this lovely skein of yarn here. I've got a stitch marker here. This stitch marker was from Lara, who is Arty Crone on Instagram. She was my swap partner in the Flora Honeypot handmade Christmas gift swap, and that was one of the things that she got me. So I've just popped it on there for now. But the skein of yarn, it is House of a la Mode, and this was in my Christmas Day package from Dawn, who I said earlier I did the Lay Family Yarn Advent swap with. And it's got lovely greens and browns and greeny blues and greys, and it's beautiful. And it is 100% superwash merino, and it's in the colourway Redmond, I think. It is lovely, and it's very, very soft. And what I wanted to ask you was, has anybody got any single skein project recommendations that I could use this beautiful yarn for? Because I am absolutely dreadful at keeping skeins of yarn and thinking, oh, I'll use it when the right project comes, and then it doesn't get used. But I really want to use that because I think the colours, to me, they are not spring summer colours, they are autumn winter colours. So if I could get something knitted up or at least cast on before the spring, in that, then that would be lovely. So if you've got any recommendations, let me know in the comments, or you can send me a message on Instagram. So we are on finally to any other business, yay! Okay, so you would not believe the state of my table by this point. Okay, as it is my first podcast, and as I am very grateful to anybody that has taken the time to get to this point where I've been recording for over an hour, I hope it's not been really boring. Let me have a sip of tea. Yeah, so I'm really grateful to anybody that's bothered to watch this far. I thought I'd do a giveaway. So when I was showing you my works in progress, I said that I made my own project bags, and I do, and I really enjoy making them. And so I thought that I would offer one of the ones that I have made as a giveaway prize. So this is a lovely blue and yellow and pale pink floral quilting cotton. I've also used I'm sure there's a technical name for this stitch, but I call it a feather stitch. It's one of the embroidery stitches on my machine in like a mustardy yellow thread. And then it's got a cotton canvas, it's got a box bottom, and it's got a drawstring with some twine through, and it is lined in a blue and white spot. And I'll just open it out so that I can pull the drawstring for you. So it's got your box bottom, and you can easily fit 2 or 3 skeins in there, I reckon. There's 1, and there's 2. Yeah, I've got 2 in there, so you'd easily fit 3 in, wouldn't you? So yeah, I'm going to offer that as a giveaway prize to somebody that I randomly select who follows the rules of the giveaway. So I have written down what I would like you to do. So if you would like to be entered for the giveaway to win the project bag, which has been handmade by me, then leave me a comment underneath this video to say hello, first of all. It's a nice way to start. Let me know what you thought of the podcast. Let me know where I can find you, and let me know if there's anything else that you would like to see. Essentially, I'm just asking you to leave me a comment letting me know that you want to be entered for the giveaway, and it would be nice if you said hello and told me what you thought and told me if there's anything else that you'd like to see, and if I can find you on Instagram or on YouTube. So yeah, leave me a comment letting me know that you'd like to be entered. I will leave the giveaway open for I'll leave it open until I do my next podcast, so I don't know when that will be. Hopefully it'll be in a couple of weeks, but if it's a little bit longer, then it will stay open. Once it's closed, I'll find some way of notifying you, on here that it is closed, so that anybody commenting after that point will realise that the giveaway is no longer open. So yes, if you want to be entered into the giveaway to win this project bag, leave me a comment letting me know that you would like to be entered. What else? I wanted to just say a word on small businesses, actually, because I'm a small business owner. My business is very small, it's very new, and I'm selling a service, and I do most of what I do from home, so I don't have a huge amount of overheads, really. But there are a lot of small businesses out there, particularly within the creative industries and craft supplies, who I know found 2019 to be a very, very difficult year. You heard me talking about Sew Over It, whose patterns I use, and they have had a shop in London for, is it about 7 years now? Where they've taught classes, and they've always sold their patterns, and they've sold fabric, and they announced at the end of last year that they were actually closing the shop for selling fabric because it just wasn't sustainable anymore. And that, as somebody who's supported them and has made up lots of their patterns, it made me really sad actually that they were having to do that. There's also been dyers who stopped dyeing, so Little French Meadow, who I've had yarn from, have stopped dyeing. I don't know the reasons behind that, but you know, they've stopped doing that. And then Felicity, who was, I'm sure she still is, Ironbridge Yarns on Instagram, but she stopped dyeing as well. And again, you know, I'm not sure exactly what the reasons were, but times are hard for small businesses. And I was on Instagram last night and saw a post from Tracy, who is Nora George Yarns. And she was referring back to a post that she put up on New Year's Eve. And it was just saying that 2019 had been really hard for her, and she was hoping that she wasn't going to have to close the doors, but it was getting close to that point. And that, you know, if anybody could support her, you know, with any yarn purchases or purchases of anything else actually that she sells, that every little helps. And so just because I've noticed really that there've been a lot of small businesses in that situation, I thought that I would just do a bit of a shout out for Tracy. This is my first podcast. I don't have, you know, any subscribers at this point because I've not published anything. But if there are people who watch this and who you know, like what they see and feel that they want to subscribe, and I can get the message out there about some of these small businesses, then for me that's really great. So I have a beautiful skein of yarn that I bought from Tracy earlier last year here. Absolutely beautiful, gorgeous colours. It was inspired by, we've got skylights here and there's a seagull or something just flown across and it caught my eye. Let's get back to Tracy's yarn. Sorry, Tracy. It was inspired by a hydrangea plant outside her house, and the colourway is 1906, and I think that's because it's the year that her house was built. I might have that wrong, but look, it doesn't matter whether that's the year her house was built or not. The point is, this yarn is beautiful. I mean, just look at the colours there. There's some speckles, and you've got, it is absolutely gorgeous. I have not a lot of indie dyed yarn, but I think out of the ones that I have, this has got to be one of, if not the most beautiful skein that I have. And I know that it's a very personal thing, what you know, yarn colour that you choose, but for me it's lovely. So this is her super sock, which is 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, and this is a skein that I think is so beautiful that I'm doing that thing again where I'm saving it for, look at that yellow there, look at that. I'm saving it for the perfect project, but that's just, you know, that's just one example of what Tracy does. And when you look at the photographs on her website, the colours of her yarn, they just look absolutely, oh, they're mouth-watering. So if you are somebody that has the, you know, the resources to spend money on, you know, hand-dyed yarn, because we're all on a budget, you know, when making your choice, or before making your choice, I would really urge you to go and check out Tracy's yarn. So that's Nora George. And I think that wraps it up. I have written down here other podcasts that I love as well. I've mentioned a couple. I've mentioned Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful. I've mentioned Ellie from Craft House Magic. And I've mentioned Sherrie from Ollie and Bella. I'm not going to go into chapter and verse. Oh, I've mentioned Jooles as well, haven't I, from So Sweet Violet. I'm not going to go into chapter and verse about all of these other people, but I'm just going to sort of give you a little list, and maybe I'll talk about them more. So there's Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful, Sherrie, Ollie and Bella, Gayna, who is Tales from Cuckoo Land, Jooles, So Sweet Violet, Helen from Giddy Yarns. She's another indie yarn dyer, and she's got 2 little boys, and I love watching Helen because you get the real life of how crafting and running a business and kids is sometimes quite hard to juggle. Eva from Coco and Flora, her Vlogmas was lovely. Jeanette, who is Crafty Cleggs. Jeanette's not been vlogging for that long, but she's lovely. Ellie, I've mentioned, Craft House Magic. Sherrie from Sherrie Iris, beautiful embroidery. Sam, who is Betsy Makes, she's another lovely, calming, gentle soul, lovely. And Amy from Tailoress Studio, who has a sweater pattern coming out in February that I'm absolutely hoping to, I'm dying to knit it. I'm hoping that my skills are up to it. I've got Susie, who is Elderflower Stitches, and Nicola, who is Bumble Stitches, and Rachel, who is SewRayMe. So any of those people, if you haven't already checked them out, go and check them out. I'll try and leave a list below as well. But that, at 1 hour and 13 minutes, brings us to the end of my first podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've found something to interest you. If you have any questions or any comments, please leave them for me below. If you'd like to be entered into the giveaway, leave me a comment below and let me know. And yeah, hopefully I will see you again very soon for another episode. Thank you for sticking with me. Bye bye.